Yuri, thank you so much for joining us here. Longtime investor
Thank you.
and entrepreneur, and I know these prizes are something you're very, very passionate about. This is something you started with Mark Zuckerberg and Sergey Brin 5 years ago to empower scientists just like technologists are empowered. What have you learned about the best way to encourage scientific breakthrough versus technological breakthrough?
Well, this prize really has another aspect of it, which is to reach out to the whole world, to emphasize that fundamental science is important. Applied science is always supported one way or the other. Fundamental science is very fragile, and it requires supports of governments around the world. And without public recognition and understanding of what the scientists are actually doing, it's really hard to count on continuation of the support.
So what's the single most important or exciting breakthrough that we're talking about tonight, as far as you're concerned?
Well, the special prize this year went to the collaboration of 1,000 people for the discovery of gravitational waves. And these waves come to us from two black holes that collided 1 billion years ago. And it's incredible that we developed technology to be able to detect this. And this verifies the prediction that was made by Albert Einstein 100 years ago.
You're very fascinated with space and what's happening in the universe. You also launched Breakthrough Listen, a $100 million project to find extraterrestrial life. What progress have you made so far? Do you think this is something we'll find in our lifetimes?
Well, I think we have decent chance. And the reason is that there are 20 billion planets like ours in our galaxy, which is called Milky Way. And this 20 billion should be multiplied by 2 trillion, which is the number of galaxies in the universe. So the chances that all these opportunities only created one civilization are pretty minimal. So I think eventually we will find out that somebody is out there, and maybe they are 1 billion years ahead of us, and then it will really be exciting.
Now, you travel around the world, 40% of your investments are in China, for example. Talk to me a little bit about, are you concerned that this kind of innovation, funding for this kind of innovation and technological breakthrough might suffer under the new US administration?
Well, it's very early days, but I think what is happening is a amazing global macro trend, which is really empowering all of us with technology and software. Mm-hmm. And this trend is overwhelming. It did not start yesterday. In the last 10 years, there were $2 trillion worth of value created around the world. Mm-hmm. 2/3 in the US, 25% in China, and then the rest in the rest of the world. So my prediction is that in the next 10, 20 years, this trend will continue, and many more trillions of dollars will be created in this exciting space. So I'm not good at short-term predictions, what's going to happen next year, but I would bet that in the next 10, 20 years, we will see a lot of value coming out of places like Silicon Valley, Beijing, Tel Aviv, London, Bangalore.
Do you have any concerns about the election of Donald Trump, given, for example, whether it's ripping up the playbook, or perhaps you call it flouting years of diplomatic process, taking a call from Taiwan, or potentially befriending Vladimir Putin, given that you're from Russia?
Well, again, I'm not the best scholar to opine on this, and I've really been focusing on technology around the world, and that's really what drives my travel. Wherever there is technology opportunity, I'm trying to spend a lot of time there, and again, the short-term prediction is very hard for me to judge.
So really no concerns about Donald Trump? I mean, especially when it comes to, Silicon Valley has been very outspoken in terms of their lack of support for Donald Trump.
My personal focus is really sort of the biggest existential questions. Mm-hmm. Like, are there any alien civilizations out there? Is something I spend time thinking about, to be honest with you, and then looking for the next Facebook or Alibaba or Zalando or companies like that. I just don't think that I can be an expert in politics. It requires a lot of time and effort to think about it. um, and but you know, we have this project called Breakthrough Starshot,
Yeah.
which we launched with Stephen Hawking, and this is about launching an interstellar probe from our solar system to the Alpha Centauri, which is 4 light years away. You know, this project will take probably 25, 35 years, and those are the kind of things that keep me up at night.
A single election then doesn't matter. Facebook.
Yeah, like if we get this, let's say we detect a signal from the extraterrestrial civilization. You know, we started on January 1st, so it can happen any day. So let's say we do get the signal, and then we're sitting with you trying to figure out what our response should be. And you know that the civilization is probably 100,000 light years away, so the signal will take 100,000 years to reach them. So the question is, what are we going to say? I don't think we're going to talk about the election in this case.
Right. Facebook, longtime investor in Facebook. Do you think that Facebook needs to take on greater responsibility when it comes to fake or inaccurate news? Should they consider themselves a media company or a technology company?
I think Facebook is very serious about this, and we'll have Mark Zuckerberg here in the room, so you can better ask him. You know, and every single major company like this, so you recognize that there is a very high concentration of value in internet companies. You know, probably 80% of value is concentrated in less than 10 companies. Each one of them, by definition, has responsibility. So I think it doesn't only apply to Facebook; it applies to all of them around the world to think about things like that.
So, looking into 2017, talk to me about how you're dividing your time in terms of your travel and what technologies you're most excited about.
I'm 80% focused on investing, 20% focused on nonprofit initiatives like the ones we talked about. And as we talked about it, you know, 40% of our investments are concentrated in the US, 40% in China, 20% in the rest of the world. That's pretty much how I'm trying to allocate my time.
So when it comes to new technology, you know, what do you like that's out there?
Well,
Like, where do you think the growth is going to be? What are you most fascinated by?
well, there are some unstoppable trends. You know, one is all various facets of AI, and from autonomous driving to translation and AlphaGo and things like that. Another big trend is robotics, and I think when those two trends are converging, you will see a lot of change in our society.
And what do you see happening with valuations given the political climate and what's happening in the global economy?
The last 10 years, $2 trillion worth of value was created, and our prediction is that every 5 years there will be another $1 trillion. And then the question is how it's going to be allocated between different countries, how it's going to be allocated between already existing companies versus new startups. But this prediction is the one I can make. That every 5 years, for the next 25 years, there will be $1 trillion worth of value created in internet technology around the world.
All right. Yuri, thank you so
Thank you very
much.
much.